Christmas Eve, and I have a wife and 4 children, and so we're having Christmas Eve. And I get a call from this buddy, and he says, "Hey man, what are you doing day after tomorrow?" Because it was Kenny Chesney, I said, "Nothing, man. What you got in mind?" Kenny said, "Well, why don't we go down to the islands and write some songs?" 2 days later, I'm on Kenny's jet, and then on the helicopter, and you know we're at the islands pretty quick, and you know, the first night we were there, as people are prone to do in the islands, we kind of made a night of it. The next morning, I was sitting on Kenny's deck, looking at like the prettiest view I've ever seen in my life. I sat there and sat there and sat there, and about 4 hours later, Kenny kind of came walking out and wiping the sleep out of his eyes, and he looked at me and goes, "Man, we went out last night." And I looked at him and said, "Well, maybe that's the song we should write today." And so we laughed for 2 or 3 hours, and we wrote a #1 song called "Out Last Night." And that same week we wrote Kenny's new single. That same week, it comes out this week, called "Reality." So we had a good week that week. My name's Brett James. I'm a songwriter, a producer, and a publisher in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here for about 18 years now, so I've done this for a long time. I moved to Nashville in 1992. I came out here on a spring break of my sophomore year in medical school. Between my freshman and sophomore years in med school, I went to a Steve Wariner concert one night, and I'd always kind of played a little guitar, did some singing, and I thought, well, maybe I could do this for a living. I took my $1,000 of summer job money that I'd made working at a camp and cut a 5-song little demo cassette tape back then in Oklahoma City. It was really bad, but I took 5 of the first 10 songs I'd ever written and put them on tape. I had one friend who was in the music business. She was an intern in college radio promotion in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was my huge contact to the music business. I sent her my cassettes, and she was the only person I knew that had anything to do with music. She gave it to her boss. Her boss called me one day out of the blue and said, "You know, I really like these songs, and I think I'd like to manage you. I want you. When can you come to Nashville?" Arista at the time was the hottest, kind of best record label in Nashville. It was run by Tim Dubois, who now runs ASCAP and is very involved in Belmont. And Tim was the president of this label that was killing it with Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn, and all these big stars. And he heard my cassette tape, and I don't know what he saw, but he saw something. And he looked across the desk and he said, "You know, mister, if you move to Nashville, I'll give you a record deal." And I thought that was about the craziest thing I'd ever heard. If I had to pick like a favorite moment, it's probably the first time I got to write with Bon Jovi, because that's pretty cool. I'm a kid from the 80s, and you know, to walk into a room and have John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora sitting there and saying, "Hey, let's write a song today," is a pretty cool thing. Patient, work incredibly hard, don't oversell yourself. There's something to be said for a level of cool. I think there's an element of cool and letting things happen organically that is important. And going to a school like Belmont, going to a school with a good music program, they're going to put you in those situations where those things can happen organically. The music business is just like any other business in that networking is probably the most important thing you can do. It's the accidental meeting that you have at a restaurant with somebody and you talk about something and then that turns into an opportunity. Networking is everything. So I think it's really important just to be out, to be active, to be involved in things like CMA EDU is huge. Now you've got a community of people who are trying to do the same thing you are, that are connected to the people who have been doing it for a long time. So I highly recommend CMA EDU to anyone involved, anyone in college who wants to be in the music business.